Welcome to another edition of Strengthening Oklahoma. And this edition of Strengthening Oklahoma brought to you by The Winston in Norman. The Winston's got great food, better drinks, and the best patio in Norman. TheWinston.com. Visit TheWinston.com to see their menu or order online. Here we are wrapping up this week. We will briefly go back and discuss some of Kansas State and continue to look forward at TCU as we welcome defensive end off to a great start this season, Mr. Reggie Grimes to the show. Reggie, great to see you, man. How you doing?
I'm good. Great to be here.
Obviously, Saturday did not go as you guys, anybody thought or wanted it to go. As we look back and evaluate that film, what stands out to you kind of the most as where things went wrong defensively?
I think a lot of it was just we were doing a lot of things that we hadn't done just as defense in a long time, and I don't know what it was. I mean, there was a lot of little things, a lot of misfits, a lot of missed tackles, a lot of alignments, assignments, your keys. People's eyes were everywhere. So I think the main thing, just going through this week, was just getting back to how we were, just return to form, so to speak. So with that case, man, we've gotten off to a pretty great start so far, and I just can't wait to see where today, tomorrow, and again the rest of the week takes us.
So when the unit doesn't play well, right? Clearly, you're trying to figure out all the pieces of the puzzle, but really all you can do is take care of yourself and do your job. So when you went back and looked at your individual performance, what did you think? What did you think after watching the tape?
Definitely. Again, it wasn't all bad. It wasn't all bad. There were still a lot of good things that just not me, but just us as a defensive end group did, as well as there was some bad. We did have our hand in it. We did have our hand in Saturday's outcome. So I think the main thing, just for me, just focusing on just again back to basics. So not really rushing the quarterback, rushing the man to get to the quarterback, right? And just kind of again going through things, different looks, different things, and just again playing by the rules that we set as a defense, playing within the defense to make plays as opposed to just trying to make plays.
Anything different this week, practice wise? Obviously, don't give away state secrets, but did you guys change anything up, or was it kind of the exact same that it's been each and every week throughout the course of the season?
I say no. It's been the same thing. It's just now you see more of a focus and attention to detail. You see a lot of your leaders starting to take more of a leadership role. You see a lot of your younger guys stepping up. So I think again the formula, the schedule hasn't changed. It's just the mindset and the mentality has.
What do you feel like you've learned about yourself and your guys on the defensive side of the ball after going through the Kansas State experience and now just seeing how they've responded so far this week? What have you learned about your guys?
We still have a lot to get better with, but at the same time, man, we still are a really, really good team. And just the enemy of good is great. So I think just taking those next steps and these next few weeks really is just going to depend on us, how we grow, how much better we get, how much our incremental, how much we can incrementally improve. And I think that's the most important thing for all of us to understand that, just because a few of us made a few plays doesn't mean that we've arrived yet. We haven't. Okay, we're about to go into game 5. Okay, so it's really one of those things to where just understanding where you're weak, and obviously, enhancing your weaknesses, and then understanding too where you're strong, what you're good at, and just kind of enhancing your strengths as well.
I would imagine maybe a little bit of a reality check. And I thought after that Nebraska game, I think I dubbed it as good of road defensive performance as I've seen in a long time. And, like you said, there is still a lot of good here, but it was probably a pretty good reminder, right, that there's still a long way to go, kind of like you're talking about. And, what's it been like just from a positive, negative? Because you don't want to get too down. You still want to be positive, but at the same time, clearly, I'm sure there was a lot of frustration with the way you guys have played. You've stepped up and you're starting to emerge as a leader on this defense. How do you keep it positive, keep it focused, and not allow the negative to weigh you down too much?
I think the main thing, just kind of going back to Saturday with that, is did we make a lot of mistakes as a defense? Absolutely, but we were still in that game, and the reason we were still in that game was just because of our effort and our strength. We played hard as hell. That's something that you can just kind of see on the film. Even though there was a lot of bad, the positive is okay. Imagine if we just get some of these technique things down, because the effort, the play was there. Okay, the effort, the strain was there. You had a lot of guys who were doing a lot of good things. So just as of right now, it's just okay. Well, now let's keep that same effort. Okay, but let's just bring the skill up with it. And if we can do that, man, it will be a tough out.
Yeah, playing hard, right? Playing with great effort can solve a lot of problems. There's no doubt about it. So you talking about, weighing the positive and the negative made me wonder what has the staff's reaction been, right? New staff, the defensive staff, right? All new. How have they handled the Kansas State loss and kind of this week of preparation? What's it been like for you?
Really, really well. Really, really well. It's definitely, again, it's their first loss as a staff together. So we didn't really know what to expect coming in on Monday, but it was uplifting. They uplift us. Again, we pointed out the mistakes, but at the same time, it's not the end of the world. Okay, and that's what they made sure to get across. So all of our goals are still right out in front of us. We just backed ourselves into a corner. Just true part about it. So I think that just as a staff, man, we have the best staff in the country, and they know they respond well. They know how to respond. They know how to get us to respond. So again, man, I just can't wait to see. What we do next.
Totally agree. Response is everything. And it feels like you guys have a lot of character, a lot of great leadership. And I expect, as I'm sure you do, a great response. You've been there for a little while now. And we talked with Theo earlier in the week about this. You guys have been here before. Like, as a matter of fact, you've been in this exact same spot 2 years ago when you lost to K-State in the Big 12 opener, and you go on to win a Big 12 championship. In 2019, you lose to Kansas State early on in Big 12 play. You don't just win the Big 12 championship, you go on to the college football playoff. How much is that talked about? How much do you, having been here, remind some of these younger guys that, look, we're not just saying the goals are still out in front of us. It's real. We've lived it. We know we can turn this thing around and still do all the things we've set out to do.
I think it's one of those things that, again, you can tell somebody all you want to, but until they actually kind of see it and then live it, they don't really get it, which, it is what it is. We have a lot of guys in the room who are on those 2019 and 2020 teams who, again, know what it looks like. And I think the main difference between what happened then and what just happened is, and those teams responded, those losses galvanized that team. And right now, again, we're just coming off the loss, so we can't really tell if it's all good, if it's all bad yet. But as long as we put our nose to the grindstone and just keep working, then it'll be the same result as it has been previously.
So, one thing, and this is completely random, but one thing that has always stood out about you when we do these interviews is the voice. You've been yelling at some guys. You've been getting after some guys on the practice field, man. The dulcet tones aren't quite as smooth as usual.
Yeah. We had a very, very quick turnaround. We actually just got on with a lift. So again, Tuesday practice, night practice to 7:45 lift. There's not a whole lot of time. So just shouting on the practice field, shouting in the weight room. That definitely has taken a toll on my voice, but we'll back at some point.
You sound like Dusty after one of his son's football games.
Hey, man. Yeah, believe me, I don't know. Somehow I've kind of still got it today, but holy smokes, coaching 10-year-old football, it will make you lose your voice. Kind of like being a college football player when things don't go right. Very similar situations. Let's move on to TCU. Time to put Kansas State to bed, and you continue to look back too long, you get left behind. It's time to move forward because you guys got a big task this week, man. This is a good TCU football team. They're playing with a ton of confidence. They're looking to get the Sonny Dykes era in Big 12 play off to a good start. And what better way? And a sellout crowd there in Fort Worth. They did announce a sellout. You know, going on the road, are you embracing that? Are you excited about that? Because it kind of feels like, given the way things went at home, it'll be nice to get away, just you guys, kind of an us against the world mentality. Just your thoughts on going on the road, hostile environment this weekend in Fort Worth.
Absolutely, man. We love road games for that. You know, we don't expect anybody to be there for us, and it's something that you allowed to control the crowd noise. Quite honestly, and that's definitely something that we relish, we enjoy. So it's just a road dog mentality. We love going on the road, man. TCU, all credit to them there. They have put a lot of good stuff on film. So we're gonna have to stop that. We're gonna have to stop some of the key players, but at the same time, man, we got key players too. So I think it'll definitely be a slugfest, and that's fine. But yeah, no, I can't wait to get back on the road.
So one of the things about TCU's offense in the recent past that I felt has held them back is their offensive line. What have you seen as you're watching film, prepared for the game? What have you seen from that TCU line? Does it look like an improved group to you?
Yeah, they have gotten better in some spots. You know, they're experienced now is the main thing. Is that there's a lot of old guys on that O line. So with that being said, man, you got guys who play a lot of ball. So with age comes experience, and with experience, you get better with experience. So definitely, they have gotten better at spots in that O line, and man, just can't wait to see how our guys, how our old guys, how our young guys, how we match up against them.
What jumps out at you as you pop in that tape and you guys have gotten your scouting report? Like, for people watching that maybe don't know, like, what has impressed you so far, whether statistically, talking about, watching on tape, overall, about this TCU offense?
Man, their quarterback is Max Duggan. He's a really good quarterback. He can run. He's athletic. He can throw it too. So his play has definitely improved in the past year. Which again, you know, more of a challenge for us, which is good. We love it. We love the hunt. We love the challenge. So definitely, he's. If I was to choose one spot, I would say him. He's been great this year, and just again seeing what we do against him.
How, how determined after what happened against Kansas State, how determined are you guys to slow down this TCU rushing attack, right? Jerry Miller, like, that's a big physical back. Max Duggan can do a lot with his legs as well, just like Adrian Martinez did last week. So, like, how excited are you guys to have that opportunity to show that you can shut a run game down?
Man, again, can't wait. It's just something that, again, we take pride in. Just obviously all of our performance, but especially how we stopped the run. I feel like last week we didn't do a good job of that. But this challenge coming up, man, we can't wait. Again, they got good backs, they got a quarterback who can run, they got fast receivers. So it's one of those things that says, man, if we're going to be who we say we are, who we've said we're going to be, then this week is really important for that.
I want to go back to Max Duggan, and because one thing that I noticed when I went back and watched the film, and I'm sure you did as well, they had some design quarterback run game. I thought some of the stuff that they did to get Martinez on the perimeter was well schemed. They did a nice job. But then there was also just breakdowns in the pass rush lanes, and there were gaps that were opening up, or it was he was able to get to an edge if something wasn't down the field. Max Duggan has done this in the past. He hasn't run it as much so far this year, but he's fully capable. How do you, whether it's Duggan or any mobile quarterback, what are the keys? What does Coach Chavis really talk to you guys about, and Coach Bates, about not allowing that to happen, about shutting off some of those running lanes for a quarterback when it's a pass rush situation? What will you guys have to improve upon and do better to make sure that's not a replication of what happened against Adrian Martinez?
Again, I think that just goes back to stopping the run. You got to constrict gaps. There's no other way around it. You have to either put your guy in the gap, or you got to be in the gap yourself. So you have to constrict gaps. And then when it comes to a pass rush situation, man, you have to get on edges, but you can't rush past the quarterback. If you're about to rush past the quarterback, you have to counter back. You have to keep that quarterback bottled up. And then in the back end, we got to cover. So again, just one of those things where we all help each other. So if they're getting the ball out quick, all right, awesome, D-line, we have to get our hands up. Back, you just got to be prepared to be prepared to cover a quick route. If it's one of those long, like third and long situations, then back end, you got to cover. You got to give us time to get there. And once we get there, we have to make a play. So I think it's one of those things that it all works together. But it's definitely a big emphasis just up front on gap scheme, just controlling our gaps and being who we are.
I like it, man. I really just have one more question for you, because I was kind of thinking back to, when you lose, because you don't lose often, right? When you're playing at OU, and just kind of walking around, going to class that week, like have people been nice to you? Have people treated you okay? Because sometimes people look at you funny. It's the worst, man.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's been one of those things to where, again, you don't usually lose in the regular season when you're at OU, right? So especially not this early. So it's definitely been eye-opening how some people change, how they look and how they act towards you. But at the same time, man, a lot of people have shown nothing but support, and I think that's one of those things that's really, really special about this place. At least just the student life itself, the students, the teachers, any of our support staff, any support staff, just academically, I think that they've all definitely been really, really supportive, and they understand what happened. A lot of people understand what happened. And I think, man, it's just one of my favorite parts about being here is that, yeah, we celebrate the wins, and when we do lose, it's not the end of the world.
So, and before we get to fans' questions, my last one for you. I think the last time we talked to you was right before the season started, and man, you got off to a great start. I mean, like, you're playing your best football of your career. I just want you to know that. Watch it. Proud of you, man. I'm happy for you. I know that you can't be complacent or feel like you've arrived yet, but have you been a little surprised, especially the first few weeks, with the overall productivity, man? I mean, becoming a little sack master back there.
Thank you. Surprised, not really, just because success comes from your work ethic, the way you attack things, the way you handle things, and I think that's what, especially as a defensive end, we do really well. We all push each other. We all work really, really hard to compete against each other. A lot of our strengths and weaknesses complement each other in that sense. So I definitely think it's been that, and then just kind of the work ethic, the attitude that just us as a room has just had. I think it's really, really important, and I think that's more or less attributed to all of our overall success.
Love that. You hit a couple of sacks. I noticed. I don't know what you call it, but it's like a bull and pull. It's like
Yeah.
you hit him with the bull, and you pull, and you get that nice little arm over. What is that? What does that move? What do you go with that? What is that called? Is that a bull and pull?
Called a bull pull. Yeah.
You mastered it, brother. I mean, it's a thing of beauty, and I'd love to see it a couple times coming up on Saturday.
I'm more of a fan of the arm pump celebration myself.
Yeah.
Like, the bull pull's good, don't get me wrong, but the arm pump celebration that's what I like seeing.
Ooh. Gotcha. Well, we try to do it a bunch on Saturday.
We call that the conductor. Is that choo, choo? So we're gonna go with that. All right, let's get some fans questions and get you out of here. All right, fan questions, as always, brought to you by Love's Travel Stops. Visit loves.com for more information on the nation's leading travel stop network that's headquartered right here in the great state of Oklahoma. Kurt F., what do you do during your free time in season?
We don't have a lot of free time in season, but
Key Lawrence said the exact same thing with the exact same look on his face.
Free time. What free time?
But if it's not anything that's if all my academic obligations are filled, if all my football obligations are filled, if there's just nothing else that I have to do, then normally I'll watch TV, I'll study, I'll play the Xbox, but again, there's not a whole lot of time. I'll sleep. There's not a whole lot of time to do any of that, though. So
real quick, hang on, because I got two sons that love the Xbox. What are you playing, man? What you got going?
I'm a big Halo guy. Halo is something that me and Dad's played as a kid, when I was a kid, and then just kind of growing up and just inheriting my own Xbox Man, hey, a really, really big Halo guy, really big Mortal Kombat guy too. That's something me and Dad were really, really competitive with growing up. Me, Dad, and all my siblings were really competitive with growing up, and now again, none of them could see me in it. So I think this, but definitely big Halo and Mortal Kombat. I'd say those are my two favorites.
You say that. I'm sure that they would have a different opinion if I asked them. They'd be like, no, 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 I'm the best. But
I'm sure.
yeah, okay, let's get this last one in, Reggie. This comes from Jeff C, and I love this question. He asks, "How's your grandmother doing?"
She's good. She's good. She's good. She's good. Again, man, just going through chemo. Um, she's good. She's as good as she can be. So again, definitely still praying for her. Still wish I could be back in Nashville sometimes, just kind of be there for her and take care of her, like I would if I was there. But man, she's getting better. So I think that's the main thing.
Well, our thoughts and prayers go out to her, and hopefully she continues to fight battle and get back to good health. Man, Reggie, we appreciate it. We always enjoy getting a chance to talk to you. Best of luck coming up this weekend in Fort Worth. We hope you guys are able to handle business and get back on track to a Big 12 championship. And who knows exactly what the ceiling is for this upcoming team. And if I have one thing to leave you with, when you're out there on that field on Saturday, just think of one thing: finish him. Because if you can do that, then I think all will be good, just like when you're whipping on your dad and your brothers in Mortal Kombat. Big thanks to Reggie Grimes for joining us here today. And now it's time for me and my man Gabe to break it down. The breakdown brought to you by the Oklahoma Proton Center. It's one of the top cancer centers in the region using state-of-the-art proton therapy. Oklahoma Proton Center, more than a cure, quality of life. I always enjoy and appreciate talking with Reggie Grimes, a mature young man. And, you know, really, again, this game aside, he's really had an excellent start to the season, man. I've been proud to watch him because we kind of talked like for him and Ethan, and happened to both be a couple of strengthening Oklahoma guys, they needed to step up and play really well. With the departure, Nick Benito, with the departure of Isaiah Thomas, Perrion Winfrey, like just the overall productivity, especially off the edge, guys would have to really take a bigger role. And you and I identified, as a lot of people did, Ethan and Reggie. And I think both of those guys have done that. And I think even with Reggie, even more so, with his size, length, and athleticism, he really does offer some, you know, flexibility and versatility along that defensive front. But it seems like, Gabe, there's going to be some real opportunities for him to have some success this week against that TCU offensive line.
Yeah, looking at their tackles, while TCU's offensive line is improved from what they were a year ago, I think Reggie's going to have a big day. I think Reggie and Ethan are both going to have big days because, you know, their right tackle is, I mean, I don't think he's a very good player, especially in pass protection. Left tackle, very big guy, plays with better technique than the right tackle, but doesn't have great change of direction. I think that if they can really slow down Kendre Miller and Max Duggan in that running game, and that all starts with just controlling things across the line of scrimmage, they can make some money in pass protection. And one thing that stands out to me, a lot of times it looks like TCU's O-line doesn't know who they're blocking in pass protection, just cutting guys free, especially some of the empty protection stuff, like not taking the most dangerous man and fanning out to guys on the edge. And I'm just like, I'm watching it go, what are they doing?
Stresses you.
So it's imperative that the Sooners defense are good on early downs, right? That was the biggest issue. Yeah. Now, all the misfits, all that stuff, but K-State was never off schedule. And that cannot happen against TCU. You got to be good on first down. You got to be good on second down. You got to make Max Duggan play quarterback from 3rd and 6 plus, right? If you can get him in those situations, you're going to be in good shape.
To me, I'm totally with you. They got to get off the field. Okay. They were, I believe it was Kansas State was 10 of 19 on 3rd and 4th down. And you're right. A big reason why is because they were in third and manageables, right? And just to your point, they were on schedule and they could set themselves up. But there was also a 3rd and 12 on the first drive. There's also a 3rd and 16 on that final drive. Got to get off the field, man. Got to get off the field. Like that, it's money down for a reason. And to me, that's another thing that plagued this team in that game against Kansas State, because especially if a offense does not change personnel within a drive. And I can tell you this, you probably never experienced this, but as a defender, when you think you're about to get off the field on 3rd down and they move the chains, it can be devastating because mentally you put everything you can in that 3rd down and physically, right? And all of a sudden now the chains move and you kind of maybe glance over, and if they're not changing personnel, there ain't nobody coming in for you. And I think that's where you can get a little bit tired, and that's where an offense can kind of start to have their way. So early downs are important, but it's money down for a reason. And Oklahoma faltered in that regard against Kansas State, and they're going to have to find a way to get off the field. And a big part of that is going to be restricting Max Duggan. And that's where I wanted to talk with you a little bit about this, because so one thing that I noticed, and it was something that we always worked on as players, as a defensive line, like you have to, when you've got a mobile quarterback, you have to function as a group, as 4. And you've got to understand that we can't leave a wide gap. Like you don't ever want to get 3-by-1, right? If it's just a 4-man pressure, you even if you're 2-by-2, you don't want to get washed too far inside or pushed too far outside and create a running lane. So you know that, and you're constantly working against that. As an offensive line, how much do you recognize that too? And if you know you've got a mobile guy back there, are you really trying to, if a lineman takes an inside move, say you got a 3 technique and he comes inside, he's going to really try to come hard to that A gap. Do you guys know that and try to wash them all the way across and create space, whether it's a throwing window or a running window as well as an offensive line? Like, is that something that's talked about?
So creating those rushing windows, right, for a quarterback, those rush lanes, if you've got a mobile guy, usually it's just kind of coached into the technique, right? The coaches don't talk about it, but like you do certain things like, at the tackle position, like, hey, set this certain way, get to this landmark, and if he runs up the field, just push him up the field.
Yep.
Right? Or, hey, we want to solidify the interior. Like if you're going to help the center instead of the tackle to create some of those gaps. Usually it's just kind of coached into it when you've got a mobile guy. I was never part of a discussion where someone was like, hey, let's make some running lanes for,
right.
Trevor Knight or Blake. But like that's not something we discuss, but you coach it in just by the way you drill technique in your protections. Right. But that's something that it makes it challenging for a defensive line. That's why mobile quarterbacks keep defensive coordinators up at night.
Yeah.
Right. Especially with the way that Duggan's throwing the ball. I mean, he is by far throwing it the best he's ever thrown it in his career. So all of a sudden you come into this game, this is a guy that lost the quarterback battle coming out of training camp and now looks like a very, very dangerous player. So
100% he does.
I will say, I think the Sooners can pressure him. I think they're going to rack up a bunch of sacks in this game. SMU sacked him 5 times, pressured him a ton as well. And his mobility just allowed him to get some out of some of those situations. I mean, if he couldn't move the way that he does, he'd probably get sacked 7, 8, maybe 9 times in that game. So while I do want it, there's a fine line, right, for Oklahoma's defensive line. You want to be aggressive. You want to blow off the football. You want to have a good get off, but you also want to contain him, right? So you have to find that balance.
You do. It's funny. It's funny because we would talk a lot, and I would imagine they are this week. Like, you do have to talk about those run lanes. And like, that's why, like, if you feel a guard, if you're playing tackle and you feel a guard trying to wash you or push you, need to spin back, right? You need to fight that force with force so that you can, close that, narrow that gap. And I'm hoping we see that, because I just saw, and again, it's exactly what you said, because it's like, you want to get off the rock, you want to go, you want to beat your man and fly up the field, or you want to hit a good quick inside move, and you want to be able to penetrate and create disruption. But at the same time, that also makes it easier for you offensive linemen at times to push you, to work you away from, the quarterback, and maybe open up and create those gaps. So it is a very fine line. I do think we're going to see a lot of added pressure because, as you said, they've struggled to be able to pick that up. On Max Duggan, I'm sure you heard this, and you said you talked to Sonny Dykes earlier this week. Did you hear how emotional he got this week when talking about his – I mean, pretty much in tears when he was talking about his quarterback and what he's overcome. And, basically it felt like he wanted to say, and the fact that he didn't transfer, right?
Yeah.
The fact that he lost this job and he stuck to it. Like, the kid is playing with a lot of confidence, and this staff, I think right now, has a ton of belief in him. And that's a powerful thing. Like, it's important that Oklahoma is able to disrupt some of that confidence, disrupt some of that belief that Garrett Riley, Sonny Dykes have in this quarterback. Because, and look, he's a physical runner too. That's the other thing. Like, he's a tough, hard-nosed dude. Dad was a coach. He came in, like, especially you go back early in his career, plays with reckless abandon, almost like a linebacker type mentality.
Like a battering ram, dude.
He is. And now he's, as to your point, he's developed into a better passer. So you never take your opponent lightly. And obviously these guys have watched the film. There's nothing on this film that they should be keeping him lightly. But I think between the defensive line and the front seven overall, and just some of the pressure packages they have, they need to play a significant impact. And let's be honest, dude, the secondary needs it, because as we talked about earlier in the week, they got speed out there at wide receiver, and you can only cover for so long. So that pass rush, that ability to disrupt, and not just disrupt, but get Max Duggan on the ground, it's probably as big a key and the most important thing in this ball game, in my estimation.
Yeah. I think sometimes football is simple. Oklahoma's defensive line has to win the battle at the line of scrimmage. This is just the truth. Yep. If they don't, TCU, their offense is much more explosive than Kansas State's offense. I mean, you mentioned the speed. BV said it on his coach's show earlier this week. Darius Davis, that dude can get it. I mean, he is as fast as you're going to see in college football. And then Quentin Johnston is an absolute just freak of nature. You look at some of the weapons that they've got, man. I mean, Savion Williams looks fantastic in a jersey, number 18. They have guys that are big and can absolutely run. But the good thing is all of that really doesn't matter if you beat up the offensive line.
Yep.
Right. And yep. you shut down the run game, and you get after Duggan as a passer. You make him extremely uncomfortable. And that's kind of what I'm expecting. While I do see some improvement on TCU's offensive line, I do think there's a weakness at tackle. And I expect this defensive line to bounce back. I expect them to play with the same attitude and effort, but I also expect them to play a little angry.
Yep.
So I think that's the key to this game. TCU's offense right now, they're humming, man. They can score. They explosive play after explosive play in the run game, in the pass game. Well, that's a big challenge. And I'm very excited to see if Oklahoma's defense is able to dust themselves off, right, and rise to the challenge.
Limiting explosive plays is a massive key in this game as well. Explosives in general, it always is. But Oklahoma needs to be able to hit some, and more importantly, defensively, they need to shut it down. It does feel like, to me, there is a significant, maybe a strong word, but there is a clear advantage that Oklahoma has at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I think the weakness for TCU is up front on the defensive line. I think the weakness for TCU on the offensive side is the offensive line. So, like you said earlier, I think it's a great point. Sometimes we overcomplicate this. Let's be real. Oklahoma needs to dominate the line of scrimmage. And if they do that, they're going to come back to Norman 1-1 in Big 12 play and start to shake themselves off before they head down to Dallas for the greatest game in all of college football. That needs to happen. If it doesn't, they're going to be in a dogfight, and TCU is going to have a legitimate chance to win this ball game.
Yeah. And just looking at, you mentioned explosives for Oklahoma's offense. TCU's defensive line, they don't have a single guy that scares you as a pass rusher.
Nope.
They got 5 sacks in 3 games.
Yep.
And none of them are like, oh, wow, look at the move that guy just threw on that. Like, they don't have any of that. They're starting a true freshman at nose guard. You got to beat them up, man. So I'm with you. It's all about what happens at the line of scrimmage in this game. And I think Dylan Gabriel, because I expect OU's offensive line to play well. I do. I think Dylan Gabriel is going to have a lot of time back there. With the way that OU's wide receivers are playing right now, could be a very big day in the passing game.
Let's hope it is. Let's hope that it is. Have fun in Fort Worth, Gabe. I will be off to Tallahassee. I've got Wake Forest and Florida State. I'll be following you guys. You guys will be on at 11 on ABC, and hopefully a lot of the people watching will watch a Sooner victory, and they can just keep it right there on ABC and watch Dave Pash, Tom Luganville, myself call what should be a very, very competitive and fun ACC matchup between a resurgent Seminole football team against a really good Wake Forest offense. Big thanks to Muse Growth Strategies for continuing to help us spread the word about strengthening Oklahoma. And thanks to you guys, our subscribers. Man, you make this thing go. Our players, they appreciate you. You're impacting their lives. Thank you. We appreciate you. We'll see you again next time right here on Strengthening Oklahoma.